before the women vanished, before the families cried themselves into silence. There was a boy, just a boy, who whispered to himself at night. In the small town of Grinnell, Iowa, the sun rose over quiet streets, white picket fences, and Sunday morning hymns. People didn't lock their doors. Children rode their bikes until dusk, and in the middle of it all lived a boy named William Dean Christensen. Born in 1952, William was the third of 5 children. But no one remembers his laugh. Not his teachers, not his neighbors, not even his mother. What they remember is his silence. He didn't cry when he scraped his knee, didn't speak when punished, didn't blink when other boys teased him. He would just stare. At home, things were worse. His father, Elmer Christensen, was a cruel man, a man who believed in discipline with belts, fists, and boiling water. His mother, Ruth, watched but never stopped it. Her silence was deeper than William's. They say he once buried a cat alive in their backyard. They say his brother found a shoebox filled with baby teeth, none of them his. In school, William was invisible. Not bullied, not befriended, just passed over, until the day he whispered something to a girl in the library. Her name was Lacey Dunham. She was never seen again. Lacey's body was never found. Police suspected she ran away. Her home life was troubled, but William was the last person to see her. He told investigators she left laughing, and they believed him. He was 16. After that, he changed. He wore a coat even in summer. He started drawing strange things. Girls with no faces. Girls with wires in their mouths. Girls buried beneath trees. One teacher found a notebook filled with nothing but one sentence. They smiled too much. They smiled too much. They smiled too much. The school burned down a year later. The fire started in the art wing. The night watchman said he saw William leaving through the back window. Nothing was ever proven. By 1970, William vanished from Grinnell, and for a while, people forgot. But bodies don't stay quiet forever. 13 years later, a woman named Abigail Shore disappeared after leaving a laundromat. She was 22, a nursing student, bright eyes, big laugh. She never made a home. Her body was found 9 months later in a shallow grave near Mille Lacs Lake. No teeth, fingernails pulled, face distorted into a frozen grin. Detectives called it a ritual. They had no idea this was only the beginning. In 5 states, over 17 years, women disappeared, found in ditches, woods, under bridge pylons. Always smiling, always mutilated. The media gave him a name, the Grinner, but no one knew who he was. Not yet, until a survivor came forward in 1991, a girl with torn wrists, who escaped a locked basement and ran barefoot through the snow. She remembered one thing, his whisper, "Don't smile at me. You don't deserve a mouth." That girl gave police a sketch. That sketch gave them a name. And that name would unlock one of the darkest hidden lives in American history. William Dean Christensen, a man who disappeared, a man who reemerged, a man who smiled only when his victims couldn't. This was only the first, only the prologue, because behind that first whisper was a lifetime of horror. Sometimes a scream doesn't echo, not because no one is listening, but because the room itself refuses to remember. Her name was Jessica Lee Hammond, age 19, a high school dropout from Anoka, Minnesota. Last seen entering a blue Chevy Caprice on her way to a job interview. She never showed up. Jessica was taken to a house she would later describe as the soundless place. She said the walls were made of concrete, thick, not just to keep things out, but to keep screams in. She remembered the smell first. Rotten meat, mold, feces. But what stuck with her was the silence. The way the room swallowed her voice like a bottomless mouth. And then she heard him. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He whispered, "You smiled at me. Why did you do that?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. He didn't want answers. He wanted obedience. What happened to Jessica over those 5 days isn't something her mind was designed to hold. She spoke of wires, of pliers, of his strange request to look like her face had hope. Then, on the sixth night, he forgot to lock the second door. She ran, half dead, but alive, and that made all the difference. Police arrived at the location she remembered, a quiet rental home on the outskirts of Maple Grove. Empty, stripped clean, but in the crawl space, they found a small doll, its mouth sewn into a grin. Jessica's testimony reignited a case long grown cold. Forensics matched hair samples found in the crawl space to Abigail Shore, the woman missing since 1983. Then more matches came. From Iowa, Nebraska, even North Dakota, all roads pointed back to one man, William Dean Christensen. But who was he now? Where had he gone? No bank records, no driver's license, nothing. Until one detective noticed something odd. In several towns where bodies had surfaced, there were frequent job applications filed by a man using the name Craig Matheson. Same handwriting, same awkward misspellings, same fake smile in the photos. It was William. He was hiding in plain sight, working short stints, driving unregistered vehicles, moving every 6 months. And every time he left, another woman vanished. In March of '93, a young woman named Tanya Bell disappeared after her night shift at a 24-hour gas station. 3 days later, her body was found buried beneath a children's playground. She had no teeth, her face distorted, lips pinned open. That same week, Craig Matheson clocked out of a warehouse job and never returned. He didn't kill out of rage. He didn't want sex. He didn't even want power. He wanted to erase joy, specifically the joy of women. That smile, that symbol of warmth, confidence, connection, he wanted to destroy that. Authorities believed he was recreating something, some trauma, some unresolved childhood imprint. The theory? He was killing his mother again and again in different faces. Every victim young, every victim kind, every victim smiling. The boy who once whispered to himself in Grinnell, Iowa, now whispered to his victims. Always the same words. Smiles are a lie. I fixed them. Jessica's escape marked the beginning of the manhunt. In the basement where she had been held, it would become known as the echoless room. But no amount of silence could hide William forever. And what came next would shock even the coldest officers, because his final act was the loudest. You can't wash away a scream. Not when it's recorded. Not when it's buried beneath your home. Not when it's meant to be found. April 1994. Police storm a suburban rental home in Topeka, Kansas, believed to be one of the last places William Dean Christensen lived under the alias Craig Matheson. The house was empty, abandoned again, but in the drain pipe of the basement bathroom, they found a clue, a VHS tape, wrapped in duct tape, labeled in marker, smile number 8. Inside the tape was pain, not just violence, but theater, a stage production of horror. A girl, maybe 20, her name later confirmed as Riley Hope Caldwell, missing since March. The camera never shakes. It's steady, deliberate, professionally framed. She's bound to a chair, lit by a single bulb. Behind her, a painted sign reads, "Smile for me, or I'll fix it myself." You could hear the tears in her throat. You could hear her mouth stretching in fear. But William didn't want her fear. He wanted her to perform. The tape runs for 41 minutes. Half of it is him adjusting her lips, manually pulling them upward, using fishing hooks, threading needles, talking to her like she was a puppet. He didn't see people. He saw symbols. He saw a smile as the ultimate betrayal, a lie women told to hide rejection. And he was on a crusade to fix them. Veteran officers vomited after viewing the footage. The tape was so disturbing. It was only shown once in court, then sealed, forever. But it gave law enforcement what they needed. Proof, a pattern, and a timeline. Each girl had been abducted after showing kindness. A helpful glance at the store, holding the door open, laughing at a joke. William wasn't chasing beauty. He was chasing gestures of light. He followed smiles like a predator. Tracked them, measured them. The bigger the smile, he allegedly said in a later journal, The louder the silence when it breaks. Investigators unearthed 3 handwritten journals, coded at first, but once cracked, they revealed something far worse than logistics. They revealed philosophy. William believed smiles were masks, that women used them to trick weak men. He saw himself as a prophet, a cleanser. I am the hand that removes the lie. I am the teacher who erases the mask. I am the echo that fixes the silence. Narrator, and perhaps most chillingly, number 13 will be the last. Number 13 will smile forever. Then came the discovery, a shallow grave. In it, a wooden box. Inside, a woman, preserved in chemicals. Face mutilated, lips stitched open, plastic flowers glued around her head. She had been displayed, like a work of art. DNA confirmed her as Heather Quinlan, age 26, missing for 3 years. Her death matched the ritualistic details from tape number 8. He built stages, he made performances, and he recorded almost everything, which meant there could be more tapes, more victims, more graves. But the tapes were scattered, left like breadcrumbs. Some were destroyed, others mailed to fake addresses. One was even found inside a child's toy, purchased at a flea market in 1995. He was still out there, still watching, still filming, still choosing. But then, he made a mistake, and someone saw him. A tip came from the unlikeliest source. An 80-year-old Vietnam vet named Henry Wilcox, living in a quiet town called Glendive, Montana. He reported a man who lived off the grid, paid in cash, drove a van with blacked-out windows, who once offered his granddaughter candy, but never smiled. When police arrived at the trailer 3 days later, they didn't find William, but they found tape number 13, still recording. She was alive. The 13th victim wasn't a victim. Not yet. They had arrived just in time. Her name was Lila Brooks, aged 17. She would later say, "He told me he was going to make me into his masterpiece." He said, "I had the perfect smile." She ran barefoot through the woods, twigs slicing open her feet, lungs burning. The cold night air hit her like glass. Behind her, no sound, not even footsteps, but she knew he was close. He always was. For 4 years, William Dean Christensen stole girls. But one got out, and her story wasn't just about escape. It was about what she saw and what no one else believed. Emily wasn't like the others. She wasn't from a troubled home. She didn't hitchhike or sneak out. She was taken in broad daylight, just blocks from her middle school. The town said she ran away. Her mom insisted she didn't. The cops stopped looking after a month. But in the blackened heart of Oregon's wildlands, she was still alive. Emily would later say she survived by becoming invisible. She stopped crying. She stopped screaming. She didn't flinch when he touched her. She didn't speak unless he told her to. She said, "I became a doll he kept on a shelf." But Emily watched and remembered and waited. It rained the night she escaped. Not a light drizzle, but a storm that tore trees from roots. William had gotten drunk. He forgot to lock the door. Emily climbed the stairs like she was crawling out of hell. And she ran, naked, starving, bleeding, into the forest. For 3 days, she moved toward the sound of a highway. She collapsed on the side of Route 86, barely breathing. A retired trucker named Elijah found her. He called 911. The dispatcher thought it was a hoax. Emily told the police everything. His face, the cabin, the girl she saw, the girl she watched die. But the police found nothing. The cabin was burned down. The land was sold to a logging company. They said she was making it up. They said trauma makes kids imagine things. William moved 2 counties over, and no one stopped him. He changed his name to Stanley Webb. He coached Little League. He worked as a janitor at a high school. The man who kept girls like dolls in his basement was cleaning the lockers of teenage girls just 2 years later. And no one knew. Emily's mother fought to reopen the case. She hired a private investigator. After months of searching, they found something. A storage unit William had abandoned. Inside, photos, drawings, A notebook of names. First names only. Most of those names belong to missing girls. In 2001, nearly a decade later, Emily identified one of the girls in a police cold case file. Jessica Marie Kinsey. She'd gone missing in 1995. Emily whispered. She was in the room next to mine, but no one could prove it. No DNA, no witnesses, just a girl who survived, and a system that didn't believe her. Years passed. Emily moved away, changed her name, had a daughter, but every birthday, every nightmare, she swore she could still hear the others, the ones who didn't get out. She once told a reporter, "He took our voices, but I'll scream until someone hears us." But when a hidden crawl space is discovered in a demolished cabin years later, and bones are found wrapped in floral sheets, the truth that Emily held inside for years finally begins to surface. And the town that forgot her would remember everything. Sometimes the dead don't rest. Sometimes they wait. Wait for the truth to dig them out of the dark. Wait for someone, anyone, to listen. And in 2009, someone finally did. It was supposed to be routine demolition, a forgotten cabin on the edge of Willamette Forest. But when a backhoe scraped through the basement wall, something spilled out. Not bricks, not roots, but bones, wrapped in floral bed sheets. Small, curled, as if still trying to hide. The workers called the sheriff. The sheriff called the coroner. And soon, a forgotten nightmare came clawing back into the daylight. 15 years after Emily Claire Thompson escaped, her story was finally being heard. Forensic teams uncovered 7 separate bodies, all female, all between the ages of 12 and 16. 3 were identified using dental records, and one of them was Jessica Marie Kinsey, the girl Emily had described in detail years earlier. Emily wasn't just right. She was the only reason those girls had a voice again. It didn't take long for investigators to connect the cabin to the man who used to own it, William Dean Christensen, the same man who vanished after Emily's escape, the same man who'd become Stanley Webb, the janitor, the Little League coach. They arrested him at a school fundraiser, in front of hundreds of parents and children. He didn't fight. He just said, "Took you long enough." Emily testified for over 7 hours. She described the screams, the starvation, the girl with the butterfly tattoo who never made it through winter. She never cried once, not even when she pointed at William Dean Christensen in court. "That's the man who buried my childhood," she said. But I dug it back up. After the trial, more photos were discovered in a fireproof locker buried on Christensen's brother's land. Photos of girls no one could name. Photos of girls still missing. Cold case investigators from 13 states reopened their files. There were now over 30 potential victims. But not all could be confirmed. Not all could be identified. Some still don't even have names. Just faces, frozen in fear. William Dean Christensen was found guilty of 7 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, child endangerment, and desecration of human remains. He was sentenced to 7 consecutive life sentences. No parole, no possibility of release. Ever. Emily later helped open a memorial room in Salem, Oregon. A room not just for the victims of William Dean Christensen, but for all missing children whose stories were ignored. There's no loud display, just a wall with names, and beside each name, a single lit candle. Emily says she visits it every year on the date she escaped. "He took their smiles," she said, "but he never got mine." The case led to changes in how runaway girls were treated in Oregon and beyond. Police departments began mandatory reviews of cold cases every 3 years. Schools were required to run deeper background checks. But for many, it wasn't enough. Because the truth was clear. William Dean Christensen didn't act alone. He had enablers. He had blind eyes, and a system that chose not to believe. He wanted silence. He wanted them forgotten. But the forest never forgets. And the truth always grows back through the roots.